Hello and welcome to the Eventing Podcast and another new show. I'm Diarm Byrne, Equi Ratings, and joining me on the show we have Eventing Nation leader and all-around US Eventing Supremo, Jenni Autry.
Hi, Dee.
Knowing me, knowing you, a title that UK listeners will be familiar with, is going to be our new interview show in 2019, and it gives us a chance to look a little bit behind the curtain with some of our guests. Now, we thought about who we'd get on first, and there's any number of people we could have picked and any number of people who I'm sure we will pick over the course of the season. But starting, and the answer to the question of who we would start with was right in front of us. It is Nicole Brown, the face of the Event Writer Master Series, and the lady who told me before this show that she knocked on a lot of doors until eventually either one opened or she busted it down. Nicole, born in Oxford to parents Lindsay and Barry, one older brother who she spent a childhood ponies and quad bikes. To be continued, that story, Nicole Brown. She was a teacher's pet. She was a young farmer. She is an eventing geek, and she has become the face of the Event Writer Master Series. She started at one day local events. She made her way all the way to the BBC. She's married to Oliver Brown, who she describes as a proper man, and recently has become mother to baby Toby. Nicole Brown, are you living your best life?
I'm cringing. This is so awkward to be. The tables have been turned. Normally, I'm on the other side asking the questions. But yeah, I'll promise I'll do my best. But yeah, absolutely living my best life. I'm a very, very lucky girl. And Ol is going to be absolutely delighted that I described him as a proper man.
That's the first thing I thought, is that Ol was going to love that. So how did you get to this point of living your best life? Let's go all the way back to the start. You grew up on a farm with your brother, Philip. Was it a happy childhood? Were you a wild child? How did you spend your days? Tell us everything.
Going back right to the beginning, I think I've said this story on the podcast before, actually. So I was a really, really lucky kid. We actually grew up on a farm just outside Blenheim, so where the horse trials are held in Oxfordshire. Dad was livestock manager at Blenheim, and so as a kid, I was very lucky because I could ride basically wherever I liked, as long as it wasn't on the Duke's grass verges around the estate, which was, looking back, I mean, amazing. At the time, I think I knew it was amazing, but I didn't quite understand it. I was just a kid on a pony having a great time. So yeah, I was basically just a farm kid. I was very, very lucky. We had loads of animals. We had loads of pets, dogs, lots of pet lambs who caused all manner of trouble. And very lucky to have a mum and dad who were unbelievably supportive. And they definitely used a pony as a bribery tool in their form of parenting for good behavior. Absolutely, 100%. And it worked. My God, I would do anything for a pony.
What, like when you'd be allowed to ride the pony?
Oh, no, just that I had to look after it. I was very lucky to have one. We didn't have big fancy holidays or anything like that, but good behavior. If I'd have been naughty, or we had what in our house we used to call show manners. So that basically meant that if we ever went out in public, we had to do it at home as well, but we were always reminded that we had to use show manners in public. And I never did break the show manners rule, but if I had, the pony would have been gone. And I don't know if mum and dad were serious about that, but I never, ever, ever tested them on it because I wasn't taking that risk.
You sort of still do show manners now, don't you?
Yeah.
I totally do, yeah. You should see me at home. I'm a different person.
So I'm guessing that means that you were quite well behaved in childhood and then on into your teenage years. I'm also going to assume that you were an incredibly hard worker, having grown up on a farm and learned that work ethic right off the bat. And of course, I've also seen you work like a dog away at various Equi Ratings and podcast projects. So tell us about teenage Nicole.
That's basically me. Like, I was just like a massive geek. I loved school. I loved working hard, like studying, homework, anything like that. Looking back, I actually look back at school kind of thinking, oh, God, everybody says, oh, the school days are the best days. And you kind of go, oh, yeah, whatever. But actually being an adult's really hard. Being at school is great. I probably wasn't, well, I definitely wasn't the most popular kid at school, but I had a great time. I loved learning. I got on really well with my teachers, proper teachers' pet. I mean, you can imagine how many times my hand went up to answer questions in a lesson, can't you? I mean, I was
can.
literally like, it was going up, down, and they'd go, oh, let's go and ask somebody else today. Not you, Nicole.
Is there anyone other than Nicole who knows the answer?
Yeah, basically. But yeah, just a huge sort of teacher's pet. I worked hard, enjoyed having the horse and ponies, lots of pony club camp. We used to get up to all kinds of mischief when mum and dad weren't looking. I remember we went to Olympia one year, and anybody, have you ever seen Lorenzo with the guy that stands on the horse's backs and jumps and does really cool stuff?
Absolutely not. I presume, Jenny, you're in the same boat that you don't know Lorenzo.
No.
Oh my God. Okay. Google Lorenzo. He did a display at Olympia one year and we went. And he just, basically has one leg on one horse, one leg on another horse's bum, and they like gallop around and jump things and everything like that. And my brother and I came home. Mum came outside to find us literally we'd pulled my poor long-suffering pony out of his stable and were trotting around the yard with no hat, nothing, on a concrete yard on his bum, just because we'd seen Lorenzo do it and we thought it'd be a good idea. And actually Rupert was great. He thought it was, he just humoured us, but that was basically a lot of my childhood. And it probably continued into teenage years, to be fair.
Philip, Nicole and Rupert pretending to be Lorenzo. It
yeah,
sounds,
basically.
It sounds wild enough.
Yeah, I mean, my brother was cruel to me when I was growing up, I think, because he used to, mum used to send him off with me on the pony to make sure, because he's older than me. So he's about just under 4 years older. So he would look after me and we'd race the pony and the quad bike quite a lot. But he'd put jumps up and then he'd make me jump them. And I was looking at them and they were bigger than me, but I was terrified, but I was more scared of him than the jump. I mean, I don't know what he was going to do to me if I didn't jump it, but I jumped it every time. I was braver when I was a kid than I was when I was a teenager, to be honest.
Now, I do know one thing about your teenage years that you haven't mentioned. I presume at some point we're going to get to talk about the young farmer, Nicole, and at the time you let your hair down.
Oh, the young farmer, Nicole. She was a wild one. She doesn't exist anymore.
I didn't know what young farmers were, so tell people what young farmers are for all the non-UK listeners.
Well, okay. The first rule of young farmers is you don't have to be a farmer to be a young farmer. But I guess it's an organization that they certainly have in England, and they have it all over the UK, but is of local people that have a sort of a country interest, that are young people. I don't know how old you have to be to join, to be honest. I think it's about 12 or something, but when you're about 14, 15, it gets really good. And it's basically, they do lots of social kind of farm related or country related activities and outings, and they have big shows. The AGM, which no longer runs, it's pretty legendary. And they also do big parties, and they're generally in a barn, I'm not going to lie, with that had cattle in or something hours before. It's a little bit rustic, very rustic, but it's the best fun. Totally wild.
And in terms of being totally wild, it is an important piece of, I suppose, community life and even teenage community life in parts of rural England.
Yeah.
Is that where is that where the journey meets your first love?
My first love? You mean my husband, my only love? There you go.
Your first
I guess it does, to be honest. My first and only love. There you go. It probably does. I mean, Ol is a little bit older than me, which was terribly controversial when we first started going out. So he's 8.5 years older than me. So I was 18 when we first met. So we'd kind of run in different friendship groups. And basically we went to a mutual friend's 21st birthday party, and it was karaoke. And Ol was driving, so he was sober. And I was definitely not driving and definitely not sober. And if anybody has ever heard me sing, like windows shatter. It's really bad. And for some bizarre, unbeknown reason, he was still interested after the karaoke. I mean, I think he probably asks himself why now, 11, 12 years on.
Well,
But
you made him
yeah.
work for it. You made him work a little bit, didn't you?
I
And
did,
think
yeah. Of course I did. Yes, I did make him work for it. I remember the second time we met, I was at a local point to point, had a massive spot, literally spent the entire day avoiding him. And every time he sort of headed in my direction to talk to me, I literally ran. Like, I'm sure he thought I had a cricked neck or something because I had my head at a funny angle and sort of trotted off in the opposite direction with some dodgy excuse. But yeah, eventually he won me over, and the rest, as they say, is history. We've been together since I was 18. I'm 29 now. Been married for 5 years, 6 this year.
It's impressive.
But he's managed to put up with me for that long.
Well, I mean, you're a good pair now, in
Yes.
fairness. You're different, but similar, I would say.
I mean, yeah, I would say all
match each other very well.
You. Yeah, definitely. Like, he's a bit wild.
I balance him. He balances me. Yeah, absolutely.
I think we'll come back to Al because I want to hear more about this. But it's around this time. It's shortly after, I guess, you met Al. So you're 18 now at this point. And this is probably one of the first big challenges, I guess, that you face. I think you're about 19 when your dad passed away. And you would have been in and around university time at this. This, I presume, is one of the toughest periods of your young life at this point.
Yeah, I think it still would be the hardest time of my life, to be honest. We had recently moved from Northamptonshire to Nottinghamshire with Dad's job. I was doing my A-levels at a school up near where we now lived. And my dad was diagnosed with cancer when I was 17, a fairly aggressive cancer. And it was, putting it quite bluntly, horrific. We'd always been a really close family. Mum and Dad had been married for 25 years or so by this point, had always been very much excellent role models as to what I think marriage should look like. And all of a sudden, life was put in a very, very sort of turbulent, kind of difficult place because we'd recently moved to the area. Mum was very much adjusting to that. My brother, I think, was away at university at the time, and Dad was working on the farm, and he was really quite ill. But I guess everything in my family has been, you take the positive out of things. And I sort of said he was a role model. I mean, he used to schedule his chemo around getting home for afternoon milking, even though he was really quite ill and he would struggle with it, and he'd just go out of the parlour, throw up and carry on. And Mum carried on working when he was ill, even looking after him. She managed to juggle it. And they both kind of just, for me, epitomised marriage, love, positive mental attitude, hard work, determination. He had a core of steel and he was not going to let that cancer beat him. And actually, he fought it for a hell of a lot longer than he perhaps should have done. And I think that kind of, yes, it was the hardest time of my life, but actually it's probably been one of the things that shaped my life the most. Because I look back and I think, if he could do that, and if Mum could do that, then surely I can do whatever it is I'm trying to do at the time.
Yeah, I think those, particularly at that age, I think those experiences they definitely do shape you. And then it becomes a question of whether you take the positive or the negative. I presume as well, in a new area, particularly with your brother in university, I guess it would have brought yourself and your mom very close. I know you're very close now.
Yeah, we were a really close family. I mean, my mum is like my best friend. I was really close with my dad as well, but my mum even now is literally like the first person I ring in the morning. We'll talk multiple times through the day. And sort of moving on from dad passing away, she's been incredible. And I think if I can grow up to be half as strong as her, then I'll be doing very well in life.
And I guess, speaking of strength, I think Oliver Brown is the other big rock that's been there probably,
the real man.
Tell us why he's a
Proper
real
man.
man, actually.
Oh, he's just a proper man. I mean, we've had the talk about the toolbox at your wedding on many a time, because we were flying out to your wedding in Ireland last year, and I was most upset that he wouldn't be able to take his toolbox on the flight because he wasn't driving, and therefore he didn't have his truck with his tools on it. And I don't know what he needed his tools for, but he always likes to be prepared. If something goes wrong, he can fix it. He is just a proper man.
I mean, I didn't believe the toolbox story, if I'm honest.
You didn't believe it? Oh, damn.
Well,
Little do
initially,
you know.
I mean, you were coming to the wedding for a couple of days. It seemed such an unlikely and unnecessary thing to be fretting about in the couple of weeks. So, like, we were getting married in a pretty remote part of southern Ireland. So like Jenny and Josh were coming from the US, and we'd lots of friends coming from England, and most people's concern was around how to find where we were and where to stay. And genuinely, not a joke, Nicole Brown was texting me about whether they would drive or fly because of Oliver Brown's toolbox. Like, what an odd and actual
this
situation.
was debated for a while as to whether they would drive, so that the toolbox could in fact make the trip.
But to be fair, it's just that he likes to be prepared. And he is prepared. Like, if something happens, he can fix it.
Even at a wedding.
He's even at a wedding. You never know when something might go wrong, Dee. You never know. And he would have been there able to fix it for you. The same is to be said when we go on holiday. We don't really go on fancy holidays. We're sort of quite, you'd probably describe us as home birds, really. But when we go to Devon, like, our idea of a good time is to go to the beach and make a cup of tea on the back of the truck, and sit and drink our cup of tea. And the toolbox is always in the car when we do it.
Right. So he's a man who's always prepared. Is that what stole your heart? Was it love at first sight? Tell us how you knew he was the one that you wanted to marry.
I think we probably, I've already said it was a pretty tough time in my life. Ola and I had got together the summer before Dad passed away the following May. And so he probably saw me at my absolute worst. I actually went to university, so I'd finished my A-levels, and that summer I was at home. The plan was very much to go off to university. Went to university, absolutely hated it. Left again. I think I lasted 4 weeks. It was, again, a really tough time. I think I was, obviously, things were pretty tough at home. I lost any confidence I had. Like, I was literally a shell of the person that I once was. I really struggled in so much as, I think it was a decision that a lot of people, even though it wasn't really any of their business, didn't understand and were really quite horrible about it at the time. For me, it was the best decision I ever made, was to come home. I would do it again in a heartbeat, even if it was tough. And again, it's one of those things that I look back and think, do you know what, it was kind of meant to be? But he saw me through all of that and the hardest time of my life when Dad died, everything like that. And he was an absolute rock through it all. And I thought, if he loves me like this, then we're in it for the long haul. And to be honest, I think, I would quite openly say he's my soulmate, and I knew it pretty early on, but that cemented it for me. I would, honestly, I'm so sickening. I am one of those people that is literally so over in love with her husband. It's really quite sad, but I love it. So
it is very sweet. You two are adorable.
He doesn't do sort of, all the public displays of affection or anything like that. So he'll cringe when he listens to this so badly. He'll be delighted I called him a proper man, but he'll cringe to the declaration of love in public.
So was your wedding really sappy, or did you tone that down
No. The wedding was probably a fairly stereotypical English wedding, church wedding. It was really beautiful church in the village that my mum lives now, which is attached to a big priory. And you opened the doors when we came out of the church, and there were just sheep grazing in the park just in front. And it was beautiful, really, really beautiful. And it was a hell of a party. I mean, a hell of a party. It was good fun, our wedding. I'd marry him again in a heartbeat, even if we could just have the wedding again. I'll be honest.
Did you have a first dance?
Coldplay, Yellow.
Oh, brilliant choice.
Yeah. Coldplay is literally the only band we've ever seen live. And we've seen them live 3 times or 4 times. I mean, it's like the two country people go to the city and watch a band. It's quite funny, but brilliant.
You're not really that musical, are you?
Oh, God, no, not at all.
As in, you don't. I know you can't
all.
sing, but do you? Is there music on in the house? You know, do you have a favorite band other than Coldplay? No.
Basically just Coldplay.
Well,
Coldplay.
steady.
I mean,
Too
I like.
steady,
Don't
young
get me
farmers.
wrong. I like other music, but none of it really quite resonates with me quite as much as Coldplay does. And also the same, to be fair. Although he'd probably be into a bit more heavy metal music or like rock kind of stuff if he was left to his own devices.
Surprised.
Well, not heavy metal, but like a bit more hardcore music. Not my, I'm more, if I'm going to listen to something else, probably like Taylor Swift or something. But
Swifty's a good choice.
Yeah, you can always sing along to that.
Okay, so back to your working life. You are 29 and have already accomplished more in your career than most people might hope to in a lifetime, honestly, and certainly before turning 30. Being a woman in a male-dominated profession surely means there have been times you've had to really dig in and fight for your seat at the table. So can you tell us about that journey?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest and say it kind of started by a happy accident. I had sold my event horse, who I competed up to novice level, albeit not very successfully, but we had fun, and absolutely had loved him with all of my heart. It broke my heart to sell him. It was very much a grown-up decision when I was 18. And I kind of wanted to stay involved in the sport. Had always sort of thought, oh, I'd like to give commentating a go, kind of not really knowing anything about it and just sort of tongue in cheek a little bit because I'd always been riding. And then I happened to talk to a guy I was working with at the time in a rugby industry. It wasn't eventing related at all. And by coincidence, he actually ran a little horse trials in the village that we lived called Winkburn, which if you're over in England, you'd probably remember Winkburn. Lovely little event, run on Old Parkland. And he said, well, come along and have a go. So I did. They literally gave me a microphone, and a really nice chap called Chris Hottie, who I still work with now, sort of gave me a few tips. And I just loved it, literally, because I don't even particularly like public speaking, which is bizarre. But give me a microphone and I just love it. Like, it's like something inside me changes. And I just loved it from day dot. And it was a tough place. I was 18, 19 at the time. So I was only young. I was looking for opportunities in a fairly older industry that was, as you say, predominantly male dominated. And it was really tough. There were a lot of knockbacks. There were a lot of people that I think probably didn't want me to succeed. But I kind of work on the theory that you knock on lots of doors and eventually either one opens or there's a little snicker of light and you can push your way through. And I was really lucky because I had a couple of people who were very kind, very generous with their time, with their expertise, gave me opportunities. And that really gave me the opportunity to kind of step into a few local one-day events. That grew. I picked up a few internationals and it really went from there. But I did have to develop a very thick skin quite quickly, which I think was hard for me because I was quite naive. I'd probably been on a bit of a roller coaster for the last couple of years. And it was a bit of a shock to the system, I think, at times. But it's been worth it now. But I think it was extra hard going through it at the time.
Nicole, I remember the first time I heard you was the first day of the first series of the Event Rider Masters. And I think I was due to be there on the second day, which was show jumping and cross country. and I was actually in Sarah Hesseltine's house, Sarah Hesseltine of the Gatepost, and I was sitting
Right.
in her study listening to the first day of the Event Writer Masters commentary. And I remember Alice was on, Alice Plunkett, Alice Fox Pitt. She was on, and she did a lot of the intros, and Spencer did a lot of the commentary. And then at one of the breaks, this girl came on with loads of Echo ratings numbers. I was like, who? Wait a second. Who is this? She's really good. I mean, she gets it. She's delivering this. And then it went from there, really. But I guess Event Writer Masters is certainly one of the big stepping stones that you've had, and even less so a stepping stone. It's a really big part of your career now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the kind of examples of you work hard enough and you push for enough opportunities that eventually those opportunities come your way. And it's a case of saying, right, I've got that opportunity. I'm going to damn well do my best with it. And I was really lucky because the likes of Paul Tapner, Alice Plunkett really did give me an opportunity when I was fairly unknown. You know, I'd done a lot of one day and a few internationals live commentary, but I hadn't done anything TV related. And they did give me an opportunity. And it was a really eye-opening experience, you know, those first kind of forays into it, because you see the production. You know, you watch it on TV, and I've watched Badminton Burley for years. Anything that's been on, I've watched it, and it just kind of happens. And then you go behind the scenes and you see this whole army of people who are so good at their jobs and so talented at what they do in so many different ways, whether it be technical, whether it be in front of the camera, behind the camera, whatever it is. And actually, it is a massive team that pulls it all together, and they rely on everybody to make each other look good. You know, it is a team, and one person can't do it without another. So that was really eye-opening. And I think it was, can you remember GAC 2016, which clashed with the Rio Olympics?
I do.
And we were at Gatcombe for the Event Rider Masters leg. And I know Alice was obviously out in Rio, and a number of other people were as well. And that, I think, really gave me the opportunity to anchor in the studio for the first time. And that was eye-opening in itself. You know, it's a different kind of pressure, but I loved it. Just absolutely loved it. I mean, if they ever try and get me out of the ERM studio, I mean, they'll like have to crowbar me or something. I just love it. Absolutely love it. I've been very, very lucky. And it's opened other doors, which I've been exceptionally lucky to do as well.
I think one of the people that you're mentioning, and probably one of the other people who we will come on to, big inspirational figures I know in your life, but Alice Plunkett, who we've had on the show previously, really is that kind and that generous and that giving of her advice and expertise, and so calming. She's a big one, and I think you know, you've worked alongside Claire Balding as well, and she's another who really is that nice in real life. Sometimes it can be hard to imagine when you see them through the TV and they seem so sound and nice, but I know for you and for lots of people out there, they're pretty special, pretty inspirational figures in this world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Alice, I genuinely think she's a queen. She is one of the nicest people I've ever met. She's down to earth. She is exceptionally generous, not only with her time and expertise, but with her ideas and opportunities. You know, she's got a family at home. She supports William and everything that he does. She's had a fairly hard life at times, and yet she is just one of the most positive, lovely people that I've ever met. And for me, you know, that kind of kindness, when somebody offers you something that they don't have to offer you, that, and they go above and beyond, like that really sticks with me. And she's been an incredible influence in my career, and I'll be forever grateful to her. And likewise, Claire Balding, you know, she's made such an incredible career. For me, they both managed to engage the audience. So one of the things I love about commentating and I love about presenting is that you have that opportunity to kind of touch the viewer with what is actually happening, and to let them understand and get involved with and live the the experience, the moment, whatever it may be, for themselves, whether it's heartbreak, whether it's glory. They're part of that moment of sport, and they both do that, and they're not afraid of taking a risk. I mean, did either of you see, I think it was London 2012, and Claire was doing the swimming, and there was the South African swimmer Chad Leclos, who won gold, and his dad was in the audience, and Claire pulled him in for an interview, and it was one of the most incredible interviews of the whole Olympics. Like, it went viral because this huge South African bloke was just overcome with emotion that his beautiful boy had won gold. I think he'd beaten Michael Phelps or something at the time. Like, it was huge. And I read somewhere afterwards that she hadn't been meant to pull him in for an interview. Like, he was just in the crowd, and she spotted that opportunity and ran with it, even though there were probably people in her ear going, no, we're going to do this, or we've got that. But she committed to it, and it kind of made TV gold. And to have that kind of instinct and bravery to do it on live TV is incredible. So both of them would be, I think, huge inspirations in my career, and both people I really look up to, and both people I probably still get a bit fangirly over.
Well, I personally think you are following in their footsteps to be just as big of a name in your career. And now you've added another component to your life in having Toby, becoming a mom. It's something that you always wanted to be a mom, and maybe wasn't always the easiest thing for you in the beginning, which I hope you don't mind me asking about that. But I think the listeners would like to know about how that was for you in those early days having him.
To be fair, I always knew I wanted a family. And we've been exceptionally lucky. And Toby is literally, I mean, everyone probably says it about their own child, but he's literally the best. I mean, he's amazing. Diarm thinks so too, but he is just the coolest. But it was a hell of a shock to the system. It was really tough, particularly in those early days. And actually, Jenny, you were one of the people who probably saw it the most, because at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, America, the time difference became my best friend. Because I would message you or you would message me and sort of see how I was doing. And actually, anybody that's had a new baby, it's hard. You're totally exhausted. Your hormones go absolutely bonkers. And it is a massive shock to the system. But it's the best thing I've ever done. And like I say, he is like a baby genius.
Toby the therapist.
Yeah.
Toby the therapist, yeah.
He is, I can confirm, the best. He is some child.
I still haven't met him, but I did send him a little onesie that says "Someone in America loves me." So, and I know he wore that in the early days.
And he did. He's huge now. He crawled for the first time today in a fashion. I mean, he's literally, he's not a baby anymore. He's definitely a small child, but he's brilliant, and we're very, very lucky.
Agreed. Now, Knickers, we're coming to the end of the Knowing Me, Knowing You show with you.
Is it wrong that every time you say "knowing me, knowing you," I want to break into like Mamma Mia? Isn't there a Mamma Mia song that goes something like,
my God,
"Knowing
how can
me,
you,
knowing you"?
No?
No?
Well, yeah, but
No?
how can you not associate it with Partridge? It's Alan Partridge.
Partridge.
Anyway,
before my time, Dee. Before my time.
Oh,
she's only 29, Dee. She's so young.
No. Partridge is timeless.
Yeah.
Nicole,
No.
iconic commentary moment. I know we probably all have one in our head. In your career so far, is it the Chatsworth one that springs to mind first?
I know what you're thinking of. You're thinking of Chatsworth 2017, when Gemma Tattersall became the first female winner of an Event Rider Masters leg, and I went along the lines of what a round, what a moment, what a horse, what a lady, or something.
What a lady, what a horse, what a round.
I never know what's gonna. Yeah, I never know what's gonna come out of my mouth before I do those like bits at the end of rounds, or sort of the little sound clips, anything like that. I don't know what's coming out. I literally just comes out. I don't plan it. It just happens.
The only time that you see Nicole angry, Jenny, and I mean, because of show manners and that kind of thing, she doesn't get angry very often, but she's very, very professional in the studio, as you can imagine. And because of that professionalism, she has someone in her ear all the time saying things like, cut for highlights and cut for highlights. So what that means is, you've got to leave the appropriate gaps, so that when something's been edited, that they can take a particular snippet of what she said and put it into the highlight show. So sometimes, now we're much, much smoother at this, but we did have a little period there, probably in 2017, where I think it was probably Wiesbaden 2017, where Nicole knows that
Wiesbaden 2017.
I know, but she has to have, this is the only thing she really insists on, Jenny. She has to have the closing line of the show, of the winner going across the line. That's the only thing she will literally fight you on. And if someone is coming to the last fence, like Ingrid Klimke, when she had that 20 on a Skada at Wiesbaden, she's one fence to jump. Nicole will look at me and like poke me, punch me, push me, but with this rage in her eyes that she knows that I have to finish that sentence in the next second because she needs to deliver her killer line each time. That be fair, Knickers?
It would, although that makes me sound really egotistical. I always come back to you, but it's like the process, isn't it? You have that clip that you can clip for highlights, and then we move on from there. But if we all try and talk, then it just ends up in a big muddle. But yes, that would be fairly fair that I'm fairly strict, because there's nothing worse about something coming to a huge crescendo and then two different people talking over each other, and like it doesn't really make sense. So yes, I'll take that one. Do I get quite bossy in the studio, D?
No, well, now we know where we both sit. I mean, the battle lines have been drawn. But I mean, there was just that small period of adaptation for both of us where we were learning what was important to the other one. And
you get plenty of airtime. I don't worry about that. But yes, it is.
Yes. No, it's just I love that killer look that you do when it's to ensure that you get the close. Which
she does have a great killer look.
Which you deserve the close. I mean, it wouldn't come across as well. I don't think the killer lines would come out quite as flowing as they come if they were from me. Speaking of the big ones, what would you say you use a lot? I have a couple of words, and I think people who listen to the podcast probably know some of mine and probably some of all of ours. But Jenny, actually, I can ask you first. What would you say Nicole's overused ones are?
Well, let's see, this is difficult because would that be considered something critical? Because I would never say something critical about my dear friend.
Don't worry,
Nicole.
Jenny. There's nothing you can say that I wouldn't say myself, so it's okay.
Right, okay, fine. The one that instantly popped into my mind was saying, now we will turn our attentions to, and she used that a lot as a segue.
Yeah. That's a very good one.
I've got one.
To be fair,
yeah.
To be fair,
all about being fair.
Also, now fair. This is a horse. Now this is a horse.
That's brilliant, Jenny.
Do you know?
Good point.
Honestly, I'm over the floodgates now. Do you know what? When I first started commentating, somebody pointed out to me that I said jump over quite a lot. Jump over fence 13 or whatever it be. Literally, this was on the first events I'd ever done. And I remember being like a little bit panicked as to thinking, but how else do you say they've got to the other side of a fence if they've not jumped over it? What have they done? And I spent a large proportion of my day trying to figure out other things. But yeah, you go through phases, I think. Now you've pointed those out to me, I'm going to try my best not to say them.
To be fair,
I have to say.
Commentator. Don't worry about it. I dread to think what mine are. I don't really have any for you, Jay. Do you know any of yours off the top of your head?
Nope, I have none.
Jenny's perfect.
Great variety of phrase. Nicole, last ones. We have a couple more. Jenny, have you any more? Have you any more from the back of Vanity Fair that we can steal?
Yeah, no, I think here's a particularly interesting one. If you were to die and come back as another person or thing, what would it be?
I'd be a dog.
Good answer.
I honestly would be a dog because a dog gets cuddled lots and I like a good cuddle. I'm a very cuddly person. I'd get fed a couple of times a day. I'd get lots of attention. I could sleep regularly, some nice walks, trips out in the lorry. I could be occasionally a little bit naughty, but would hopefully be cute enough to get away with it. Yeah, I think being a dog would be quite fun. Chase the odd cat or two. Fun.
You're talking to two people who would almost certainly come back as cats.
No.
Yep.
Okay. See,
Just
this is one of the
stunned
things in my
silence from
life.
the two of us.
So one of my flaws in life would probably be that I occasionally say things and then afterwards think, oh, you didn't quite filter that before it came out your head, did you? No.
Well, I think it's likely that a lot of
Never
listeners
mind.
would agree with you. It's just that myself and Jenny would probably be
You two don't.
two of a minority who would sit here and listen to all those nice things you said about dogs and just think, yeah, a little bit stupid. Be a cat.
Cat. Cat is the answer.
Last one. You ready? One more? Are you ready to go? It's been a good show. I've
Yeah.
enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah.
Found out quite a few things I didn't know. What is your motto? Strange. I don't know if you would have one. I don't know if any human would have one.
I
but
have a motto in life.
is it around hard
I
work
like
and
it.
manners?
No,
Probably.
it's about show manners. No, it's not actually. It is something that Ol said to me a few years ago now. I can't remember what context it was in, but it's always stuck with me. And I kind of I just remember it all the time. Basically, he said that if somebody offers you something, or you get the opportunity to do something, or you get a big job or a career opportunity or anything, it could be anything in the broader context. Somebody offers you something and your gut says you want it. You say yes, and then you figure out the details and how you're going to actually do it afterwards. Because I can be quite cautious in life, I think. He would definitely be the more impulsive of the two and the braver. And I definitely sort of channel that and think, yeah, I'll say yes and I'll figure it out. Listeners, it's a good thing to do in life.
Well, and I remember you saying that when you were debating whether or not you should come over to do the commentary for Carolina International, which was your first trip to the US. And
It was.
you decided to do it based on that motto. So good motto.
There you go. Country girl gone wild. But yeah, that was probably a fairly big point in my life as well, actually, because when I had that opportunity, I just found out I was pregnant. So off I trotted with baby in my stomach to America.
And then you told me in the wine aisle of Walmart.
Yeah. And I therefore wouldn't be drinking wine with you throughout the week. I was like, there's no way I can get through this without telling you, because you will twig. Not listeners that I'm some kind of wine lush or anything like that.
On that note, we will end our first show. I think it's been a success, ladies. I mean, next time we'll all be on the other side, or me and you will be on this side again, Jenny, but we'll probably have Nicole interviewing someone. I don't know who we'll pick. Listeners, can you let us know who you would like to hear on Knowing Me, Knowing You? I'm thinking of maybe asking Tim Price, seeing as he's got his exciting news coming out soon. Although we have done Tim before. He told us about his 2016. It was pretty interesting.
I think we should do Janelle.
Yeah, okay.
Ooh, yeah.
You can do that one.
Let's let the listeners decide. Who do you want? Yeah, me and Sam. Who do you want on the next Knowing Me, Knowing You episode? Because I have to admit, I will be excited to be back on the other side of the interview table.
You've done well.
Yeah,
you've done well. Nicole, we'll see you soon. Jenny, we'll see you soon.
We'll see you soon.
Okay. Bye, pal.
The sign off is all yours, Derm. Don't forget to plug social media.
No, you. One of my favorite things about being on a show with you, and it happens rarely, but one of my favorite things is doing my own sign off that you have to listen to. It just kind of, as everybody knows, it just kind of garbles on until eventually everybody runs out of fuel. And on. And no, that's it. If you would like to visit any of our social media channels, please feel free to do so. Also, don't forget to rate the Eventing Podcast on iTunes, and even potentially leave us a review, because that can help friends of yours find us too. Thank you very much from all of us here at the Eventing Podcast, and we'll see you soon.
Smoothly.